Hey, I'm Dr. Cody Sipe with a functional fitness tip for you. We're going to talk about how to challenge the sagittal plane demand of the body using dumbbells. Now this is kind of difficult to do, so there's a couple things that we need to walk through. First, what is a sagittal plane? It is this front to back plane of the body. Anything that's pulling me forward or pushing me backward is challenging the sagittal plane of the body. It's movement forward and backward. So how do we use dumbbells in order to challenge us in that plane? Well, if I lift dumbbells up to the front of me, like in a front lateral raise, then in this position, it is trying to pull me forward. So that is somewhat of a sagittal plane demand, because when it's trying to pull me forward, I've got to resist and I've got to stay upright. Okay, so that's a sagittal plane challenge for my body. But it really is rather small. Okay, your shoulders, especially, are not going to be able to lift a whole ton of weight. Okay, so you're going to get to the point where this is really just a shoulder exercise and it's not really challenging your body too much. Same thing with arm curls. Okay, when these dumbbells are up in front of me, yes, it's trying to pull me forward a little bit. Okay, and I've got to resist against it, and that's actually why a lot of people swing into the motion. Is one, their arms are tired. Okay, but also they get tired in the core and they can't hold the position, so they start to lean forward a little bit. So that's still challenging the sagittal plane of the body, but again, not so much. Some ways that you can increase that sagittal plane demand would be, okay, so dumbbells are working against gravity. So instead of standing up tall, if I lean forward, like in a dumbbell deadlift exercise or even a barbell deadlift, okay, then as I lean forward, I'm working the sagittal plane in order to get back up. So those back muscles, all those postural muscles, or having to hold my back in a really good position, right? They're not moving, they're just holding that spinal position, okay, while I hinge at the hips and move through the hips. So the buttocks and hamstrings, okay, are providing the movement, but all down through my back, throughout the core, those muscles are contracting isometrically and are just holding the position. So that's a really great sagittal plane exercise for what we call the posterior chain of the body, or the muscles on the back of the body, okay? Another one that you can do is if you go into a rowing movement. So if, again, I lean forward, so I'm making use of gravity, and I do a rowing movement. Now those upper back muscles are working for the row movement, but all the lower back muscles, okay, even down into my buttocks, are all holding the position while I perform the movement. So they're really working isometrically for sagittal plane demand. We really want to work those muscles for long periods of time, trying to get them to hold a position for 10 to 15 seconds at a time and build up their muscular endurance, because that's really what those muscles do during lots of daily activities. It's not necessarily about brute strength for those muscles. It's about holding contractions for a long period of time and resisting against all these forces. So those are sagittal plane exercises, but everything I showed you is for the posterior chain, like I said. It's trying to pull us forward, and we're trying to resist against it in order to stand up. So how do we challenge the anterior chain using dumbbells, something that's trying to push us backwards and we're resisting against it? Well, with dumbbells, it is very difficult to do, because we naturally hinge forward at the hips so that we can go against gravity, but we don't very naturally lean backwards. And now if I do try to lean backwards and put dumbbells up here in order to challenge myself, now my back is in a very potentially compromised position, and that's something that we want to avoid. So really with dumbbells, we want to think about challenging the sagittal plane, posterior chain, much more so than thinking about how can I get creative and use dumbbells to challenge the sagittal plane, anterior chain, because it typically is going to put the back in a very compromised position, and something that we don't want to do. So there are many, many other ways in which we can challenge that anterior chain in the sagittal plane very safely and very effectively. So I'm Dr. Cody Sipe with your Functional Fitness Tip.